is a prime generator meant to run full time, meant to be on 24/7, 365. And so there is no combustion, there is no spark plug, there is no flame, there are no pistons hitting anything. They run, there's no lubricant in them, there's no oil. They run on an air barrier system, and there's two oscillating pistons, and they compress the gas and they pull apart. And when they pull apart, that's what makes the power.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. Hey guys, are you a residential solar installer doing light commercial but wanting to scale into large C&I solar? I'm Tim Montague. I've developed over 150 megawatts of commercial solar, and I've solved the problem that you're having. You don't know what tools and technologies you need in order to successfully close 100 kW to megawatt scale projects. I've developed a commercial solar accelerator to help installers exactly like you. Just go to cleanpowerhour.com, click on strategy, and book a call today. It's totally free with no obligation. Thanks for being a listener. I really appreciate you listening to the pod. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Go to Clean Power Hour and click strategy today. Thanks so much.
The clean energy industry is moving fast. The deals are getting bigger, the technology is evolving, and the stakes have never been higher. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour, the podcast for solar, storage, and microgrid professionals who want to stay ahead of it all. Each week, your host, Tim Montague, industry advisor and president of Clean Power Consulting Group, brings you unfiltered conversations with the leaders actually building the energy transition. Now, here's your host, Tim Montague.
Today on the Clean Power Hour, a solar and roofing contractor who looked at the post-IRA landscape and decided to bet the business on a generator most of the industry has never heard of. It's called a linear generator. It has no crankshaft, no spark plugs, no oil, 2 opposed pistons floating on an air bearing, compressing fuel in a low-temperature, flameless reaction, 13 beats a second. It can run on natural gas, propane, hydrogen, ammonia, or biogas, and switch between them on the fly. My guest today is Walt Jordan, Chief Revenue Officer of dGEN Energy Partners, one of the largest rooftop solar contractors in the country and the 43rd largest roofing contractor in America. We talk about why they pivoted, how roofing and solar became a single tax-advantaged CapEx, and why speed to power is beating the interconnection queue. I'm Tim Montague. This is the Clean Power Hour. Welcome to the show, Walt.
Thanks for having me today, Tim. Pleasure to be here.
Great to see you again. It's wonderful to meet such an innovative EPC. Tell us about how you came to dGEN and what the company is up to in the world.
Absolutely. So my reality to dGEN is the largest rooftop solar contractor in the country. And I came to them as a consultant 4 or 5 years ago. And they decided that they wanted to get into the roofing business. Well, my background is in roofing, and what I quickly learned when I landed in this space is that roofers are allergic to solar. Solar guys are allergic to roofing. And so when we joined forces and started putting the building blocks together, I took to the solar landscape like a duck to water. There's still some pieces to it that I don't quite know. The solar guys speak in their own language, but it's been a lot of fun, and that's where that's where it started for me personally. We've grown our roofing business. We're the 43rd largest roofing contractor in the country now. But as we all know, and everybody's eyeing the one big beautiful bill, we've taken a different approach. We recognized really right after the election when we saw the USDA REAP grants going away, and then all of a sudden, low income went away, and the wind subsidies were starting to go away. We had to make some pivots and make some changes, and we've had a relationship with these linear generators for spans back to somewhere around 22, 23, and we decided to accelerate that and see where it's going to take us. And it's been a lot of fun. It's brought a lot of excitement to the world of power generation for our team. It's a different conversation than everybody else is having, and it's wicked cool the way that this stuff works.
Before we get into linear generators, you need to understand dGEN's foundation, which is the marriage of roofing and solar. These two trades have historically been somewhat allergic to each other, and I'm famous for saying that 90% of commercial solar projects die on the vine because of roof condition. dGEN turned that problem into their signature play, bundling the roof and the solar into a single engineered CapEx. I asked Walt how that works. Yeah, let's answer that question right away. How do you make the roofing and solar a single CapEx from a tax perspective?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's and I got to tread lightly here because we've got some proprietary things that are attached to this. But essentially, we're going to take the reflectivity of a bifacial module, and we're going to use the reflectivity from the roof. And that's the biggest mainstay for how that works. And so when you do that, there's certain criteria that have to be met, and the UV reflection index rate of the roof have to qualify. So you can't go put a solar array on top of a black EPDM roof because there's no reflectivity to it. There's nothing that's going to help you get that bounce back effect using a bifacial module. So
right.
It limits you in the product offerings that you've got. But the reality is, in the product offerings that it limits it to you, they're a phenomenal product for most buildings across the country, just because they stop the transfer of heat. And you're turning your roof into an energy saving resource for you, as opposed to it just being a bottomless CapEx expense. And so when you combine the two into one, they both turn out, as a single unified engineered component. And that, we have gone to the top of the hill using that, and have our belts and suspenders through our C2C system pledge that allows us to do that. So we'll give a guarantee on the process, provide an audit defense on the backside, and help the customer through the process as they, navigate the complications that are the filings for that.
dGEN still installs batteries where the customer wants them, but Walt is candid that he thinks battery chemistry is a moving target, with sodium coming on fast. Where he's placed his own bet is on a technology I'd honestly never heard of before this conversation. So I asked him the obvious question. But what the heck is a linear generator, and how did dGEN get into linear generators?
So we were introduced to them by one of our recurring revenue clients, large format logistics company. And that was where the introduction came from, back fourth quarter of 22, first quarter of 23, somewhere in that range. And looking at, some prototype stuff with this in some extreme cold weather climates. And the product performed great. And so we've had it in the background, but with, the IRA and the ITC being as hot as it was, if it wasn't broke, don't fix it kind of a deal. And then we really started to dig in on the LGENs January of last year, and it's a lot of fun. It brings a lot of fun back to the process. Customers are extremely intrigued by it. It's funny. I sat with a customer yesterday, and he's like, "I've never heard of this. I don't know what this is about." tell me more. Well, and I told him, I said, just about everybody we talk to has the same conversation. And so essentially what a linear generator is linear generator runs on compressible gas. So that can be hydrogen, that can be ammonia, that can be methane, propane, natural gas, etc. And it compresses it. It doesn't burn it. So what a lot of people want to default to is they want to default to a backup diesel generator is what everybody wants to default to. And this product is not that. It's not that in any way, shape, or form. This is a prime generator meant to run full time, meant to be on 24/7, 365. And so there is no combustion. There is no spark plug. There is no flame. There are no pistons hitting anything. They run, there's no lubricant in them. There's no oil. They run on an air barrier system, and there's two oscillating pistons, and they compress the gas and they pull apart. And when they pull apart, that's what makes the power. And they hit at about 13 beats a second. And they're just, I mean, I love using the term, they're as cool as the other side of the pillow. And quite literally, I mean, the exhaust on them is that of a hairdryer on low. The EPA doesn't have a measurable test for emissions on them, and they don't make a lot of noise. I mean, they spin cycle on your washing machine is about as loud as they get. And so they can be grid forming. They can be grid following. We can use them in a utility scale. We can use them behind the meter. They serve a great function. Where their drawback is it takes them about 30 seconds if you're going to fire them up. So they're not used in a backup position. That's where a lot of people get confused. They don't meet the tier 3 and tier 4 upstart mandates that those things are supposed to have. But they blow tier 4 final out of the water. They blow the UL 2200 ratings out of the water. From just a power generation perspective. I mean, they're clean, they're efficient, they're quiet, and they save you a ton of money. If you've got, a project that's, call it 1,200,000, 2,000,000, 3 kilowatt hours a year, that's right in the starting spot for these things. So they're a great solution.
So I did some homework on linear generators, and I would encourage people to go to Mainspring's website. That is the main company that makes linear generators. It's a company out of California, and it looks a little bit like a jet engine from a distance, but they come in 250 kW units. They have a small footprint relative to solar, not necessarily battery. So you can think of it as having a similar footprint to a battery, I think. But
one parking spot. That's all it is.
And they are using fuel, and it is a form of combustion. It's low temperature combustion, so the emissions are quite different and less toxic than a traditional fossil fuel generator. But they do have carbon emissions. Unless you're burning hydrogen, unless they're fueled by hydrogen, in which case water is the emission. But it does consume fuel. So the carbon.
You're right. It does consume fuel, but I want to make this clear. The NOx level on these it passes all 12 of California's emission tests. The EPA doesn't have a measurable test for it.
Yeah,
you're going to make more emissions in your kitchen burning a gas cooktop stove.
Yeah, but if you're feeding methane into a linear generator, it is producing CO2.
Correct.
It is producing CO2. Albeit less than a diesel generator or a natural gas, just a traditional fossil generator. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. Quick context on the numbers here, because I want to be precise. The air quality advantage of the linear generator is real. Near net zero NOx, no particulate matter. It passes California's air district permitting out of the box. That's its genuine edge over engines and turbines. On carbon, it depends entirely on the fuel. Running on pipeline natural gas at roughly 46% net efficiency, you're looking at around 0.4 of a ton of CO2 per megawatt hour, which is roughly grid gas equivalent. Run it on dairy biogas, where you're destroying methane that would otherwise vent, and the project can actually go net negative. So air quality is the headline, carbon is a fuel question. But the bottom dollar here, Walt, is saving money, reducing your spend on energy. And so let's talk about that. If you have a customer, a big flat roof owner in California, where they're paying 35 or, some exorbitant rate for energy.
35.
And they're looking at rooftop solar, batteries, and other solutions. And I guess I'm curious if you got into the fuel cell business at all, because a fuel cell is also an option. But how do you approach these large C&I customers with energy savings? And let's say that there's an opportunity for a mix of technologies. How do you rank the technologies in terms of cost per unit of ROI?
Yeah, so good question. And no matter what the product is, right? Whether it's batteries, whether it's a backup generator, whether it's a prime generator, geothermal, solar, whatever, right? They all have their shortfalls, right? Everybody has those, right? It's being able to understand what those look like. And so at the end of the day, solar is still going to be your cheapest power, power producing product that you can put on somebody's facility. But then, you're in the wintertime and you're in Minnesota, you're limited, right? You're not going to make as much power as you would like to. Other parts of the country, you get out in the desert and, like Denver is like the perfect climate because it's 300 days of sunshine, got a little altitude. It's not as hot. Electricity flows better. Those things work. But the cool thing about the linear generator piece of it is it doesn't have to be natural gas all the time. So it can flow. So if we've got, methane that's being produced and we can use the methane as the source, and we don't have enough methane to keep the generator running at full time, it can flip over to natural gas as the backup for it. Whether that's a, 40-60 split or a 50-50 split or 75-25, whatever the case may be. We can adjust on the fly, literally no retooling, no changing anything. It can just move over from one source to the other. Whereas when you get into some of these fuel cell products that are out there, whatever it's designed for from a fuel cell standpoint, that's it. That's its fuel source. And so this gives flexibility to the customer where, hey, let's use an example. I've got a product or a project potentially going to take shape in New York, and they're not going to have natural gas on the site for 2 years. And so we're going to truck in propane, run the generators on the propane, and then when natural gas comes in, we're just going to flip them over, and it's just a matter of connecting a different hose at the end of the day for how you're going to fuel that source. And so that gives them, all of the flexibility to make those decisions and, have to spend a little bit more in the first 2 years while we're waiting on, local utility to get them what they need. But the reality is long term, it gives them more flexibility in the grand scheme of things over the course of the next 20 years.
Yeah, I would love to see a cash flow for a linear generator. I never have seen that. Are there any other significant considerations for linear generators? Are they generally available if you want to buy a couple of megawatts of generators? What's the lead time?
So we call it speed to power, right? The project I was talking about up in New York, where they're not going to get natural gas brought in. NYSEG told them when they started construction of their expansion, where they needed 25 megawatts, that they were good to go. So they're halfway through construction of this big expansion project. And NYSEG has since then told them sorry, we can't bring this. We can't afford to give you this extra power that you're going to need to run this facility. We're not going to be able to get you a second meter and get you turned on, unless you have to bring in your own power source. Well, they're scheduled to be finished with construction around Christmas. So we're in a position where we can deliver what they need in somewhere around 6 months. So the worst case scenario, our speed to power is going to be 12 months. Best case scenario, could be 4 or 5 months. There's some other compensating factors that can fall into that are out of our control. But reality is we can get the product and get it on the ground quickly compared to a lot of different things that are out there. And getting them permitted through the AHJ is not real complicated either. And in most scenarios, utilities just approve them. So really happy with the product.
Very cool. So there's going to be a linear generator and solar microgrid, or just a linear generator microgrid?
So the linear generator can be the own thing, right? Mm-hmm. Do we have applications where we've put solar to go with it and let them work with each other? Mm-hmm. Absolutely, no problem. That is very, very achievable. Have we added batteries to the linear generator? Absolutely, no doubt. Do we have linear generators with backup diesel generators on them as a redundant backup? Yes. Do we have it with solar, the linear generator, battery, and a diesel backup? Again, the answer is yes. So it's very versatile in how the application of the linear generator can be applied.
And are there any gotchas regarding other equipment, balance of system, inverters? Just paint us a picture.
None that I have found yet. I feel like, the way that this product sets up with the performance guarantees on it, it really, really is what I believe is a sure thing, right? Because there's guys out there that talk about, customers will say, yeah, I put solar on my building 10 years ago. I didn't see any difference. I spent $1 million and, it's not working right. And, this is, this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of different excuses. So, there's that. But the catch to it is that these machines do have to be maintained once a month. They've got some graphite rings in them that are designed intentionally to fail in the process. So they degrade over about a 30-day period, and they've got to be swapped out. And so as long as the machine is being maintained and proper maintenance is being done, then that's a beautiful thing for where these products are going to go as far as longevity and the real return on an investment, and get you the real impact that you're looking for. Take out peak demand, take out your standby charges, all that stuff. You can be your own thing with just these generators.
Hey guys, are you a residential solar installer doing light commercial but wanting to scale into large C&I solar? I'm Tim Montague. I've developed over 150 megawatts of commercial solar, and I've solved the problem that you're having. You don't know what tools and technologies you need in order to successfully close 100 kW to megawatt scale projects. I've developed a commercial solar accelerator to help installers exactly like you. Just go to cleanpowerhour.com, click on strategy, and book a call today. It's totally free with no obligation. Thanks for being a listener. I really appreciate you listening to the pod. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Go to Clean Power Hour and click strategy today. Thanks so much. All right. So if you were an EPC doing large rooftop solar and battery, you would absolutely recommend checking out linear generators, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I would. And here's the thing about the linear generator, and I want to be clear about this too. We haven't dismissed solar and said, we're going to throw solar in the trash and we're never doing solar again. We're still continuing to navigate, the solar landscape that we have now, and the solar coaster, as I've been taught to call it, because there's ups and downs in this business, just like any business, right? And the linear generator doesn't always fit in the applications that we're presented with. And so, we're still looking for solutions and finding things that work. There's a lot of incentives in the Northeast to still go with solar, and where solar is going to continue to pencil. The ROIs aren't going to be as aggressive as they once were, but they still pencil and they still make a good investment for the clients. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to evolve our roofing business. We're going to continue to evolve in the battery space and find tangible benefits for our customer that gives them a real impact towards the ROI.
Well, you mentioned something we should touch on briefly. AHJs and fire service or fire chiefs, how do they respond to linear generators?
So my personal first interaction with this was I met with a councilman for a county out of New York, and he first thing he did was like, you need to go see the fire marshal about this. I'm not going to talk anything further on this until the fire marshal tells me he's good with it. And so I went and sat down with the fire marshal, and we started going through it and explaining the technology and showing him some different videos and really kind of getting into the nuts and the bolts of it. And frankly, his questions, some of them were way over my head. It was a great educational moment for me. And then and he's going to be one of the ones that are joining us next week. And once he got comfortable with it, then the wheels started to turn really quickly. As far as the AHJs go, they recognize this as a generator. And since it's got a Tier 4 final and a UL 2200 rating, as long as you got your paperwork in order, they seem to go through that process relatively quickly, much faster than what we're used to in the solar piece and how all that works, and having to redo this design and redo that design and change the racking system and changing your attachment methods and all the things that they put us through. We're not faced with a lot of that. They spend more time worried about the concrete that you're going to put the doggone thing on than they do the actual generator from an install standpoint.
That's Walt Jordan, Chief Revenue Officer of dGEN Energy Partners. Find Walt at dgenenergy.com and on LinkedIn, where he posts field videos of these machines in action. I opportunistically went to Indiana to visit a linear generator site with Walt and some of his customers from the East Coast. And I have to say, it was a very interesting thing. If you look carefully, you can see the heat waves there. These are the exhaust chimneys, for lack of a better expression. The exhaust comes out the bottom of this chimney here, and you can hear the generators thumping away. Each of the 250 kW generators takes about a parking spot, so pretty reasonable for a megawatt of power. Just a question of how it pencils. The generators do make noise, though. It sounded roughly like a locomotive engine. And the generators were paired with a flow battery at this hospital complex that we visited in northern Indiana. There was 4 linear generators, so a megawatt. They're each 250 kW, so it was a megawatt of generators. And you could feel the exhaust, how warm it was. It generates heat. It is a combustion technology, albeit low temperature. And the exhaust was very clean, though. You didn't feel like you were breathing pollution, although you are. It is emitting carbon dioxide if it's burning natural gas or methane. So you have to be careful. But overall, I was favorably impressed. It's humming along, making electricity, presumably cheaper than grid energy. And that's the key, is finding the opportunity where you can make electricity with the linear generator cheaper than you can make electricity with grid power or buy electricity from the grid. So that's the kicker. But that's true of any alternative source of energy, whether that's solar, batteries, wind, etc. I do think that where you're real estate constrained, like if you don't have a big enough roof or enough real estate around the facility and you have a large load that you're trying to offset, I think there's definitely a play. I definitely think there's a play with biogas. So if you're operating a cattle facility, a dairy, something like that, and you can burn, so to speak, the methane coming off of the operation, the dairy operation, then there's an opportunity to really see a win-win with linear generators. Only time will tell. My takeaway, whether or not linear generators become the bridge technology, Walt believes they are. The story underneath this episode is the interconnection wall. When a utility tells a customer mid-construction that the power isn't coming, behind-the-meter firm generation stops being exotic and starts being the only path to speed to power. That's the constraint reshaping distributed energy right now. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Tell a friend about the show. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, a rating or a review goes a long way. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.